Welcome back to Duda Dojo, your source for the latest Duda news, platform how-tos, and web design updates. I'm Matt Scroggs, CMO at RivalMind, and this week I sat down with RivalMind COO, Matt McGinnis, and Jessica Goodrum, Marketing Director at RivalMind, to discuss the ins and outs of selling Duda website projects. So let's jump right in.
Matt and Matt, I have both Matts in the dojo today. We are going to discuss website development, what it takes to develop a website when we're considering how do we sell our clients on new website development. So I'm very excited to pick both of your brains. Matt, from a technical perspective of what does it take to develop that website, timeline, costs, and then Matt from sales and how you sprinkle your...
Wait, no, I'm technical too.
Okay.
He's totally technical.
You're both technical. You have great things to
Give me some
provide.
credit. I've been doing this for 20 years.
This is true. So Matt, I guess tell me what are some of the key factors that influence the cost of a website project? And for any of our viewers today that are watching, like what would you advise them on to consider before they quote out a project?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts are always what are on the forefront of my mind. Like as the one now who is the director of web development again, being able to understand as we're talking with somebody and understanding, RivalMind's stated mission is we exist to help companies thrive. So how do we do that? We need to help them create a marketing tool that's going to interact as one of their salesmen, but understanding in their minds, what is it that they need?
Yes.
There's, you could go a bunch of different ways. It could be that they don't have a website at all right now, and they need something and they're feeling the burn of how fast can we get this done? And so with that consideration, you're trying to figure out, can we do something relatively quickly?
Isn't that always the question?
How long does this take?
Yeah.
That is always
Every time.
that is always the question. But it is different for somebody who doesn't have anything and they're eager to make it happen.
And they're like establishing their brand.
Right. And then we can get it stood up and then go to work on it. We know from a digital marketing standpoint, like the whole goal is to build out fresh content and have it be indexed and go that direction. On the other end of the spectrum, there are people that we interact with that have had a website for decades.
Yes.
And it's massive and it's got a bunch of random errant pages that aren't doing anything for them. So in that case, we're trying to figure out how do we pare this thing down and make it so that it's legible for not only Google, but for users, like setting up information architecture so that it's easy for a user to use, but also we consistently say you don't want to force Google to dig through a bunch of trash to find the nuggets on your website. How do you take the
100%.
most important things and make them the most important things again by organizing your information architecture in such a way? So those are kind of two of the main, directions that we would go or we would interact with them. Basically that ends up scope is kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, that's the word I would use. And some of the things you just said, there's like scope within scope within scope. He mentioned, figuring out if you have 3,000 pages, figuring out what is really worth it to bring over to a new website and what is garbage that you don't want Google to have to sift through.
Right.
Well, it isn't just let's hack off 80% of this. Somebody has to go through this stuff. And somebody has to look at Google Analytics and see what assets are worth keeping. And then applying that as a part of the strategy. I mean, there's so much to information architecture depending on the size of a project. Now, if your website is 20 pages, that's super easy.
Right.
But if it's massive and we get these all the time, you can spend 40 hours just figuring out what content to keep. And then beyond just content that you already have, what content needs to be developed? And does the scope include writing? Is your team going to write? Are you asking our team to be a part of, creating content? Or assets or landing pages? There's just so much to the word scope.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it can take a week or so just to write a proposal because you have to figure out how big is this project?
Yeah. What's it going to take to organize, condense, and then actually build some value into it when our team does it, because we are SEO first. So we consider all those factors.
And getting into that conversation with these clients, like it's interesting as, you know, you go into a discovery call or two, just understanding where they're at. You know, I gave it that first broad brushstroke. Are we talking about 6 pages? Or are we talking about 50 pages launched because of the size of your current website? But then also, you're so right. It's interesting to go through that click and impression data. And sometimes a website's largest traffic driver is a blog that, you know, somebody's cousin's brother wrote, you know, a few years ago that they didn't even realize this is the predominant traffic driver for your website. And then being able to, this is something that I think sets RivalMind apart, being able to identify that and then protect that asset. How many times have we had that conversation with a client that just recently had a website rebuilt? Now they want to talk to us about, you know, visibility, SEO, and digital marketing. But, you know, we go in and we look at the data and the graph has just tanked. And they're like, it's almost every time we're like, did you launch a new website right around this area? And they're like, yeah. And we're like, man, it stinks because all of that, you know, all of that inertia is lost. It's not like you can put that page back up and now it comes all the way back. So identifying those things and taking them seriously is another piece of that scope that we're baking in. And, you know, we talk about this all the time. We're not the cheapest. Right. We're not going to be the best fit for everyone. But those are the things that we're trying to think of when we're talking about from a technical standpoint and the scope. We're going to do all of this work to make sure that what we end up producing is actually going to help your business thrive, rather than we'll, you know, crank you out a website and send you on your way.
Yeah. I mean, at RivalMind, we aren't just, like you said, we aren't just, let's just build you a website. We're like, how do we build you a tool that's going to serve your business? So that's a really good point on the functionality and things to consider within scope.
Well, one of the funny things is when Matt and I are in a sales meeting together about a website, Matt will always inevitably chuckle when we come to the conversation about content.
Yes, of course.
Because every company underestimates the time that it takes to, you know, for them to be a part of coming up with the right content. What are we pulling out? What are we keeping? I just recently we have a really big client who said for a long time, we're going to handle moving all of the content over from our blog. And then like last week, sure enough,
I know this client.
the call came, hey, do you think you could quote us on doing this? Because we did 1 or 2 of these and couldn't believe how long it took.
Yes.
Luckily, we're very efficient at it. But even in the Duda system, it isn't like you can press a button and pull all of your blog posts from one website into your new website. Every one of them has to be massaged so that they all look good and how they display on mobile and all of that. So all that to say, from your original question, it all boils down to scope and understanding how much time does it take.
Yep. What the client's goals are, what the current website looks like, and then how many pages are we building in the functionality. So speaking of scope, how does the Duda system like enhance the experience of selling the website or the efficiency of the project? So it's kind of 2 questions there. Like, how do we sell with the Duda system? And then where does it provide those efficiencies?
Oh, man. So everybody knows that I love Duda. I've been selling websites for probably over 20 years. And I have worked in so many CMSs over the years.
I'm sure it's changed a lot over the years.
Oh my goodness. But at no other time in the history of my career has it been easier to sell a website project based on the CMS. Now, a lot of people will come to us and be like, we've been told we need to use WordPress.
Sure.
And so we have to overcome that by talking about, you know, Google Core Web Vitals,
Mm-hmm.
things like that demonstrate that Duda is above and beyond basically any CMS out there.
Mhm.
But what it boils down to typically is just plain showing them how Duda works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, I always say, and I think the staff kind of makes fun of that I say this, but to me, it's a marketer's dream.
Yes.
Because I use it every day.
Mhm.
I'm using it on our own website and other websites. And I just can't get over how excellent of a job they've done and continue to do building this content management system. So to me, just to get the conversation started about this, it is easy to sell once you demonstrate how it works. But
Yes.
there's a lot of different facets of that. I'll let you talk about some of the facets that you love, and then I'll circle back.
Yeah.
So when I started at RivalMind, we were a WordPress shop, and we had a process of coming up with static designs, in Photoshop files or Illustrator, and then sending them to a developer, and then having it take 100 hours.
100 hours, Mike would always
That's
say.
an inside joke.
So I mean, we know that it does take a lot of work in order to code things that way, and that's to me, that's you talk about efficiency.
Mhm.
Like we have designers on staff right now. We call them diviners
Mhm.
because we've now taken our developer and our designer and pushed them together. But the way that they can design on the fly and design right in the system really is what strikes that efficiency. Being able to even, I was talking with our design team yesterday, even them harvesting assets from different areas and then putting them into the system, they're still creating right inside Duda. And then, everything that Duda has provided is right there for them to be able to I know that this widget will do this thing that I have in mind. So the efficiency piece of going from static designs to a developer, and that's just on the build side.
Yep.
And then the opposite end where it gets to the end user, again, as a guy who has spent, a significant amount of time as a project manager, literally just wanting to correct for something or change something myself.
Yes.
The classic, screenshots and sending them to the developer and, having them change the one thing that you asked, but somehow the icon moved over and now you're like, well, great, you changed that thing, but can you change this thing back to where it was when I took the last screenshot?
Yeah.
So just being able to overcome some of those hurdles, on the quality control side has truncated that time in such a way that it really does make it so that it's far more efficient to start a project and then create it and then hand it to somebody at the end, even a layperson that can interact with their own website.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the efficiencies that we realize from using Duda, those efficiencies lead to a reduction in cost, which leads to a reduction in the price tag for a website for the end client.
Yeah.
And so that's another beautiful thing. In this day and age, like you said, your cousin's brother, which would that be your other cousin? I suppose there would be some nuances in there where they wouldn't be, but everybody knows somebody who builds a website either in their basement or at an agency.
Yeah.
And so being able to differentiate, bringing down our cost, because we have to compete across the board.
That's a good point.
There are contractors, Duda contractors, who might build a website for $500, and there are agencies who will build a website for $10,000. And so being able to use Duda to bring down the cost is important because the cost in general of website development has come down.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess with the Duda system, speaking of that and efficiencies and costs coming down, like what are some of the factors? Is it just because we can design that much more efficiently? Is it because we can be more creative? Are there any additional factors that would bring the cost down for a Duda system, or anything that you could advise the viewers on how to consider the cost when negotiating that final cost with the client? Are there other factors?
I still think that there's a lot of open-endedness for the end product, so even the individuals, that you can find on Fiverr and things like that will do it. It's like that old adage is still true, that you get what you paid for.
Oh, for sure.
So like whether it's design or it is intentionality relative to information architecture, or like everybody is going to have some sort of expectation. And even, like I said before, we're not the cheapest, and I still have to set expectations with the clients that are our clients to understand that, there's many tiers even above what we would consider our sweet spot for website development and design. Like, there are enterprise level individuals that are doing way different things, and that's not necessarily what suits us best for working with our clients. So like that mentality of understanding how do you set expectations for what it is that you're going to get. Like, I think that that's the answer to that question. Like being able to say, this is what we're providing for the price tag that we're putting on it. It's our job, but it's a difficult job being able to explain the value, especially in an area where not many people understand
the value of
what it is that we're trying to do, and the difference between what RivalMind produces versus what a guy on Fiverr would produce. And how do I point out the things that we know are massive benefits and are essentially helpful to the client, but they don't even have a grid or a context for the conversation.
What that's is.
It. Yeah. That's it. That's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. So speaking of value, is that the most difficult thing, is trying to convince someone of the value of what specifically RivalMind offers? Or like, what is the thing that you run into continuously that's so challenging to like secure the sale of that website?
Anymore, it's not really that difficult to show our value. But so I'm going to pull.
That's good. Yes.
I'm going to pull the curtain back and probably upset a few of my friends in the industry because, okay, you said we're not necessarily the cheapest, but we offer serious value for our price.
Right.
Like we said, you can go on Fiverr and you can get someone to do something for $500, and you're going to get a $500 thing.
Yeah. You
might get a website from us that might be, I don't know, it just depends on the scope, $10,000.
Yeah.
You could, this is where I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit, because I've been doing this a very long time, and I've consulted with and been a part of other very large organizations in web development and design and all that. And there is definitely a point at which it's just plain margin. So, for instance, a decent sized company could come to us and we could say, probably that website that you want to produce is $15,000. And it's all based on labor. It's based on custom design. I mean, truly, we're putting in the time that costs that much.
Right.
They could go to another agency that would put the price at, I mean, my gosh, I have literally seen it 10x.
Okay.
But for sure, 30, 45,000.
Sure.
And in those cases, check the parking lot and see what the owner's driving.
Great tip. Yeah.
Because it really is just margin, and awesome that they can get that. But what happens is A-list clients, larger companies, and this is, of course, well known, but usually just pay more because they're larger A-list clients.
Yeah.
And so you can find companies like ours that just do a great job, great value at a reasonable price based on labor hours.
Yes.
You can find the over the top, way too expensive, and it's just money in their pocket.
Yeah.
Because I would say, I know that RivalMind is near and dear to my heart, but we we build as good a website as anybody in the world.
Yeah.
And oftentimes for 5x less than the big guys.
Yeah.
But we're also not going to be $500.
Right.
So it just depends.
Because we bring so much value,
Yeah.
there has to be a cost to the value that we
and
bring.
really,
yeah.
like Matt said at the beginning, it boils down to we exist to help companies thrive.
Mhm.
And so we're going to build into whatever we're creating what's necessary to grow their business.
Mhm.
It's from a design perspective, it's leading visitors down a path towards conversion.
Mhm.
How are you doing that? What are you thinking about? Where are the eyes of the user who comes to this website for the first time? Where are those eyes going? In
Yep.
3 seconds, are you convincing them of what?
Who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
Yeah.
Who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they bounce out. And if you're paying for those clicks, well, you just spent money for nothing.
Yes.
And it's so easy to click back and go to the next.
Yes.
And so making sure that you're building a website and using people who understand all of those things is paramount
Yeah.
to the success of your business.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing, like you're leaning right into what it is that we're typically saying in these conversations. Like the website, while it's a integral piece, it's one piece of the design of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like the goal would be the growth of this particular business.
Yep.
Yep.
And, I'm the one that's in those conversations always saying, like, you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but
Mhm.
everybody in the world's going to judge you by how your website looks
Right.
and
For sure.
interacts and things like that.
Mhm.
But we know that it's in the marketing mix that, like, your website has to be great,
Yep.
because we know that we can drive tons and tons of traffic to a crappy website and not have it convert. And that's not making the client money. The inverse is true. Like, you could have an awesome website, and if nobody sees it, that doesn't really help you either. But they have to both exist in order to start that snowball that we talk about rolling. Like, our goal is to help this company rise
Mhm.
and to help it grow. So we're not looking for somebody to just bust out a website and send them on their way. Our ideal client is we would build them an awesome website, and then we would start making it go to work for them
By
And
using
then-
SEO.
by using
Mhm.
SEO. And then the next thing is, like, have you considered doing anything in social media?
Yeah.
Have you produced any videos that
Yeah.
would come up in search? Like, those are the types of things that, like, what RivalMind is doing is breaking through and utilizing Duda, which we found to be an awesome tool
Mhm.
to help our mission.
Yeah.
Our mission is to help
Yeah.
companies thrive.
Yeah.
Duda is an awesome tool that's empowering us to make our mission move forward.
Yeah.
And nothing we're saying can't be proven. Here's the thing. In today's digital marketing environment,
Mhm.
everything can be proven. In decades past, when we didn't have digital,
Mhm.
you had to, do studies and wonder if your marketing efforts were working. We track everything.
Mhm.
And so, everything that we're saying can be proven. Even how long do you have from the time that somebody hits your website to prove to them that you are who you say you are,
Mhm.
that you're worth exploring further? Forrester Research gives you 3 seconds. And you also have to show them subconsciously
Yeah.
that this is honestly a professionally designed site. People, they don't even know that they're evaluating now, but they know in an instant, do I trust this company?
Yes, 100%.
And part of the
Mhm.
trust is the design.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did they take the time to actually make something that looks great?
Yes. Whatever
Because-
the brand is, whether it needs to be approachable, technical,
Yep.
edgy, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
the classic. It's not the details, it's attention to detail.
Mhm.
And being able to, professional design, custom design
Mhm.
is what allows that. Is so much more feeling, when somebody arrives, a user comes to your website, like, you're right. It just takes a few seconds and we're already determining, is this worthwhile? Is this trustworthy? Or does this make me scared and I'm gonna bounce?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a wealth of information you guys have shared today. I actually feel more educated because I know sometimes I join you in some of the sales meetings and I just feel like I garnered more perspective on the challenges, what it takes, and the even more so the value that we bring. So thank both of you for coming today. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If you like this dojo, check out this one or subscribe to our channel.